Messed around and found myself. Okay. Girl, I'm not who I thought I was spiritually, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So we can get into this. Hey girl, hey. I'm Ayolua and welcome to Joy of the People. Okay. Here I help black women reconstruct their spiritual identity with clarity, peace, and sweet, sweet freedom. Can I get a hello? Alright. So I done messed around and completely reconstructed. I'm not gonna say deconstructed from Christianity, but I reconstructed. And I realized that I was coming from a place of pain. I was coming from a place of emergencies and a place of lack, okay? But here's the thing. When I decided that I was going to reconstruct, and I'm going to get into what reconstruct me in just a second, bear with me. I reconstructed. So that means pretty much that I decided that Christianity really wasn't for me. And I never really identified as a Christian. I always questioned it. I always questioned the whole, I feel like the Bible is written for men by men. That's the first thing, okay? But it just never really resonated with me. All of the contradictions and hypocrisy that is within Christianity, it just did not resonate with me anymore. But there was a time when I went through a very dark, painful place in my life. And I was homeless. I was incarcerated. I was dealing with mental health issues. And when I was at my lowest place, rock bottom, I kind of conformed and I really went back to Christianity out of a place of being scared, being afraid. I was like, dang, I don't know if I'm going to really be able to, go back to where I was. But here's the thing about it. Before I was incarcerated and before I went batshit crazy, okay, I literally used to just be very open-minded when it came to my spirituality. I always had questions when it came to religion, honey, but I always viewed myself to be more spiritual than I was religious. So maybe you can relate to that. But anyways, when I came back on here, I had a completely different channel on YouTube, and I had around about 4,000 some odd subscribers. And on that channel, I was reading tarot. But I just felt like I outgrown tarot. I felt a voice and a conviction in me that said I did not need those tarot cards. And I was like, dang, you're right. Okay. I didn't need those tarot cards. I was able to channel messages and I was able to speak from the ancestors and the angels within me. And God spoke through me, okay? Even when I was on that channel, I used to always refer to Spirit as Holy Spirit. So I feel like I came from a place of God. I came from a higher source, and I got my messages from a higher source. So that did not resonate. That tarot community didn't resonate with me because I felt like it was just too broad spiritually. Now I'm in a place where I'm going through yet another spiritual awakening. I went through it before and I went batshit crazy. Like I said before, when I went through it the first time, I went completely lulu, crazy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if you will. And when I did, I was like, dang, I don't know if I should really be dibble-dabbling in this. But then I realized that you have your good spirits and you have your not-so-good spirits. And I feel like with spirituality, it's just, even with religion, if you just believe in God alone and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, honey, it still comes from the same realm where there's a light and a dark side, okay? Even if you read the Bible and the God that's in the Bible, you realize that God, and with the God that was in the Bible, or God, according to Billy Carson, shout out to him, you realize that that God had a light side and a dark side. He did a lot of killing. He did a lot of bad stuff. Okay, genocide, honey. He endorsed slavery. He said slaves obey your masters, and all types of stuff. And it really just did not resonate with me anymore. I was just like, I'm gonna read this because I feel like the Bible has a lot of great scriptures, and I feel like there's a lot that I can learn through the lessons and the tales that is within the Bible. Also, it's a great spell book, okay? It is amazing if you are doing some personal rituals, then you can go into the Bible and you go to Psalms, you can go to different parts of the Bible, and it's literally a spoken spell. That's literally all prayer is a spoken spell. And these are some things I had to debunk. So I realized with all of this throughout my journey that I am good on Christianity. Okay, I'm good on it. It's not for me. And I also realized that growing up, I had a lot of hoodoo practices, and I just didn't call it what it was. I just didn't have a name for it. Okay, we call it hoodoo, but like, I would sage the house, okay, to get rid of evil and negative energy. I would put salt around the house or on my front door or on the back door. Like, my aunt told me to put salt around the whole house when we had some personal things going on. So I always been really into the hoodoo spirituality, and I didn't even realize it. And I was just like, dang, I gotta have either or. But then I realized that I don't, okay? I believe there is a creator of the universe. I believe in the Most High. I absolutely do. And I will never let anyone tell me that there is no creator, okay? There absolutely is. However, I'm just a lot more open-minded spiritually than when I originally started, okay? Because I grew up in church like many of people, okay? You can relate to that, okay, girl? You probably grew up in church as well. And when I was growing up in church, I eventually, my parents stopped going to church. And that was honestly a blessing in disguise within itself, okay? I really feel like a lot of the things that I seen in the church just was like, I questioned it, okay? With the fact that, and this may be a little feminist, but I don't consider myself a feminist per se, but I am for black women, okay? I absolutely am for the empowerment of black women. And so I was seeing my church that a lot of people, a lot of men were influencing the church that was in the leadership roles. It was men up there on the pews, and I went to the Church of Christ. So it was absolutely no women preaching. It was no women in any leadership roles whatsoever. Not even a deacon, honey. Not even making announcements on Sundays. It was no women that were in leadership positions in the church, and that always bugged me. And I felt like I was taught to not question it. I was taught to just go with it. But I was just like, deep down inside, I can't go with this. I can't get jiggy with this shit. Okay, I can't go with this. I am my own person, and I know I am a leader. God created me to be a leader. And I'm just like, how can God make just one gender anointed, okay? Because that's what they swear preachers are. They swear preachers are just so anointed, and they just are men of God. But I'm just like, how can you only make one gender anointed and the other gender not? So that absolutely just did not sit well with me. And I was just like, I know I'm anointed. So I can't speak for all women. I can't speak for all men. But I'm like, God isn't going to put men and women in this position. And women and men are counterparts. We're both humans. Women ain't some ethereal animals that are just here to breed and have children and just be on a man's hip, okay? Or they're absolutely nothing and non-existence. No, women can absolutely be anointed as well. Women can have gifts, spiritual gifts, and a lot of women do. And unfortunately, those women they're typecasted, and they're put into these little itty bitty boxes of being called witches and evil and demonic and all this stuff, if they have any type of spiritual practices, a lot of women, from what I noticed, myself included, use things of the earth. We gather herbs and we gather crystals and we gather things that God has formed, that the Most High has created, and we work with those and we make the most out of those. And a lot of times when we make something happen out of using these things from the earth, people would call that, they would demonize it, and they would call us witches. And there's nothing wrong with being a witch. I now know that witchcraft has a good side and has a negative side. So it really depends on the intention of the person who is using witchcraft, honey. And I know that my intentions are pure. And I know that I'm not the only one out there who has pure intentions when we use things that are deemed as witchcraft. And I'm not even ashamed to call it witchcraft, honestly, because it may be like, that's maybe the box you want to put the spell work and the rituals that I do in. But at the same time, these are things that our ancestors did before us. These are things that we were doing back when we were here. Okay, we was doing it back in the motherland before we got here, honey. The indigenous black people that were already here on this land, long before colonizers, long before European people, were doing these practices. And when they came and they colonized us, they ended up stripping us from these practices, in which we had to do these practices secretly. We had to do it on the low. We had to do it in private, because we would literally get unalived if we practice these things. So I really questioned these parts. I really questioned the things that were going on within the Christian faith. How can something, if God is of love and light and nothing but love and light, then how can so many people who call themselves followers and believers of God or Christ be so evil and just, what's the word I'm looking for? Be so corrupted. Thank you, Holy Spirit. How can they be so corrupted? Okay? How can so many people kill? And, you know, they added the 10 Commandments at some point later on in the Bible, and thou shalt not kill was part of it. But literally, Christianity was founded off of killing and genocide and killing millions of people just to get them to follow this God that they want them to serve, this all-loving, quote-unquote, off God that they want them to believe in. So it just really never sat well to me. And so the in-between season, I was just in a situation where I was like, dang, I love God. That's not even a question about it. And now I'm calling him other things because I feel like God is so convoluted, honestly, but the Most High, the Creator, whichever you choose to refer to God, and I'm not even going to say he or she, okay, because it's an energy. At the end of the day, it's an energy. It's not a gender. It's not a human, okay? So you can't put a gender on omnipresent spirit, but a lot of humans do, which is why I know the Bible was created for men by men. That's besides the point. It's gonna be a different video, honey. But definitely, I know that in the between season, I was like, dang, I love God, and I feel like God has really convicted me, and that's why I'm not doing tarot. He wanted me to go in a different direction. And so at first, when I was in that in-between season, I really didn't know who I was, and I felt like I had to conform. So I just overfed myself on a load of Christian content, a load of people who are demonizing spiritual practices, demonizing tarot, demonizing necromancy. That's what they call it when you speak to other spiritual realms and people in the spirit world. When you communicate with your ancestors, they demonize. That's all they do, honey. And they always tell you that you're going to have eternal damnation, and they always condemn you. But then I realized that my God does not condemn. He convicts, okay? Or she convicts, whichever you choose to call it. But the God that I serve does not condemn. Humans condemn. They send people to condemnation. They make people feel guilty. They punish people for their own spiritual practices and beliefs. That's something humans do. That's nothing that the Most High does. And so that never sat well with me. So this is where I came into Reconstruction, okay? Reconstruction pretty much is when you deconstruct from one belief system, and then you begin to evolve, you begin to grow, you begin to learn, you begin to seek truth, and then you evolve into a different belief system, usually more broader than the belief system that you came from. So for me, what this looked like was I ended up going from a lot of Christian stand beliefs, even though I never really considered myself a Christian. I'm just being honest. But even though I came from Christianity, and then I reconstructed, and like recently, I did this before, but that's when I said I went bad shit crazy, honey. I did it the wrong way. I did it without grounding myself and without any guidance for real. And I was overwhelmed, and I was unmedicated because I have mental health disorder. I have mental illness. So, you know, it is what it is. So it just it snowballed into something uncontrollable. So this go around, I'm taking my time with it. I'm not overwhelmed. I am working with certain spiritual entities, and I'm going back to my roots. I'm literally returning to my roots, my African spirituality, things that I've grew up on in high school. I had such spiritualities, and I believed in certain practices that I was too afraid that if I believed in these and I actually practiced it and I honored my ancestors, I honored certain deities like Orishas, if I honored them, that I would go to this visible lake of fire that every Christian, scares people with, this eternal damnation. And I ended up going and transitioning back into it, and I realized that this is the light that I was missing in my life, because when I was trying to go the Christian route, it did not fit me. I tried to conform, it just did not fit me. I felt like, y'all ever seen the movie Fat Albert? The movie, not the cartoon, the movie. In 2004, honey. I know I'm ancient, honey, but I seen the movie, and at the end of the movie, the characters of Fat Albert, when they stay out of the cartoon for too long and they're in the real world, okay? So this is deep, honey. I didn't realize how deep this was. Okay, when they are in the real world for too long instead of in the fantasy world or in the spiritual realm, I'm call it, they start fading. Their colors start to fade. They start washing out and looking washed out and just faded, honey. And literally, that was me. I feel like the longer I stayed out and tried to conform to Christianity, I tried to do what other people were doing and what the masses were doing, I feel like I was just fading out, and I was just dingy, honey. I was dusty, honey. I was just dehydrated. I was just tired, because that's exactly what Fat Apple was. He was tired, honey, but he stayed behind for, what's her name, Dolores? Don't quote me on it, okay? He stayed behind for her. And when he did, he ended up fading. He almost died. He almost went out. Faded, dusty, destitute. He almost went out like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm finna hop my black ass back in that TV, and I'm finna go ahead and get the color and the sunshine back in my life. And that's exactly what I did, honey. I embraced all of me, okay? The real me. I feel like a lot of us are just embracing the versions of ourselves that others are trying to tell us that we should be. That's how we should be. We should be good little boys and gals, and we should follow their belief systems. We should follow their religions. We should follow their ways of thinking and speaking and walking and talking. And it was just draining me, honey. I was colorless, and I was just like, I was not being myself. I was just, myself is joyful. I'm lighthearted, and I feel like, yes, I could have went that route and been the Christian YouTube girl, but I feel like my spiritual team didn't want me to do that because I was flopping. Okay, my videos was coming out and they were flopping. I was getting no views on those videos, and it honestly was because it did not interest me. It did not intrigue me in any kind of way. And so that's why I reconstructed, which is repairing or rebuilding something that is damaged. That part of me was damaged. Just like the Fat Albert characters, that part of them was damaged. That's why they had to go back into the world that they were accustomed to, that they were embraced, that embraced them. Okay? My African spirituality embraces me, and all of my flaws. It doesn't condemn me. It doesn't punish me for being human, okay? It doesn't have me walk around constantly just sad and miserable. And a lot of people who are super overtly religious, I know, are very miserable people. And I was tired of being miserable. I love God as much as I love God. I was like, this can't be the only way. There has to be another way. And it was another way. God, He completely co-signs with this. And I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with no Christians, you know. I'm not even saying that, oh, come on, my video. This video is not for Christians per se, but this could come from church girls transitioning into their own spirituality, their own spiritual practices, okay? Once who's outgrown Christianity or even the Nation of Islam or any other religious constructs. I'm not, but I'm just saying Christianity because I grew up Christian. So a lot of us, we've outgrown that and we've become different than the people who we were raised to be, who we were taught to be, who we were taught to believe in. And so I realized that the color back, baby. The color is back. It's beautiful. It's vibrant. It's vibrant. And I'm just here to say, be yourself. Okay? This is not rebellion. This is not rebellion. This is not doing this to prove anything to anyone else or to prove them wrong. Okay? This isn't even to disagree with their own beliefs. If that's what gets them through this very sad, dark world and these very evil, dark times that we're going through right now, because we got things going on like war and politics and all this other dark stuff that's going on in the world. So if that's what helps them to get through it and move through, sail through, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, then that's them, okay? And don't bash them for it. But I'm just saying that that's not the only way, okay? And no, you don't have to live in fear, okay? I feel like Christianity, Muslims, all these religious constructs literally thrive off of fear. And I know that, and this is something I probably read when I was reading Outwitting the Devil. Okay, I read this a couple years back, but something that stuck out to me was that the devil thrives off of fear. That's the devil. The devil, the enemy, thrives off of fear. It wants you to be scared. So when people fearmonger and they have you walking around and trying to keep you in fear, trying to keep you scared straight, trying to keep you in line through fear, that is the devil that they're tapping into. That is not from the Most High. That is not from the Most High God. I'm telling you, they are using the devil. Okay, the devil is using them, shall I say, okay, to spread its agenda, to spread its propaganda to the world, to the masses. So you can't be scary over here, girl. You can't, okay? And this channel is about to be a safe space. It's about to be a safe space for real, okay? This is no bashing of anyone, okay? It's all love and light. And this is just for spiritually curious women who are like me and we're fed up and we want to be ourselves. We want to break out of the bubble world and we want to get some fresh air. We want to be in peace and in love and in light and just joyful and beautiful in ourselves. I'm that safe space for you. So absolutely make sure that you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to your girl. And I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Have a blessed day. I will see you in the next video. I love you. Mwah.